Welcome to Hot Takes, brought to you by 50cupstea.com, where united we sip, discuss, and learn. Join us as we dive into the hottest takes on culture, business trends, and the threads that bind us. Get ready for inspiring stories, candid conversations, and a fresh perspective on living a healthy, fulfilled life. Grab your cup and tune in. Let's get started.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Hot Takes. I'm Bill LuMaye, and it's my pleasure to welcome the owner of 50 Cups Tea Company and a brilliant man, because he has the hot takes. Jim Baker's with us, and we have a very special guest as well. Jim?
Continuing with our wisdom series, we have Monsignor John Wall today with us. I've known him for almost 30 years now. I'm not going to tell you his background because we'll do that as we get through this. But you're a fascinating, phenomenal human being. And every time I'm around you, I feel inspired. I feel more spiritual. And I know that you have lots to offer our audience today. So I'm grateful that you're here today. So thank you.
Who's the wise guest? You said it's something about wisdom.
Yeah, it's not Bill and I, so hopefully it's
That's
you.
true.
So
I'm
as
looking
always,
for him. I'm looking for him around here.
as always, I have a little tea here today.
I can't wait.
I did
Can't wait.
sweeten it up a little bit today since it is
that's
hot.
good.
Have a little de-stress tea. So it's all natural and good, and hopefully I can pour it correctly. Not that great, but so be it.
Look at that.
But during the broadcast, if anybody wants to sip, feel free to do so.
Take a sip. I might take one right to begin
Let me
with.
just get that out of your way here.
Here's to your health.
You too, sir. And be honest, I know you will. He's a Monsignor. He's not going to lie about the tea. How does it taste to you?
Good.
It is good, isn't it?
You can spike it with a little scotch every now and then, too. It tastes really good.
Yeah.
So how would one get a wonderful tea like this,
Yeah, you
Jim?
can just go online and order www.50cupstea.com at your pleasure.
Oh, that's great.
So, Monsignor,
Yes.
thank you for being here today.
I'm looking forward to being with you guys.
Now, you did retire from the priesthood somewhat officially, but although not really, because I know you're super busy.
Right.
I think it was, 15 years ago that you...
Right. I retired 15 years ago, and then for 2 years, then I went back to work. Rehirement, I called it. Instead of retirement, I went back as a chaplain over at UNC, at the university there. And so I thought that would be for about a year, and it ended up 7 years. So I enjoyed that and being with the kids again, and then came back and retired right out here off of High House on right near St. Michael's, the church that I helped build. Mm-hmm.
And what's your typical schedule look like on a weekly basis now?
Oh, I do a lot of hospital visits, and people that are, coming into the church, I talk to them and visit with them. But I'm scheduled for a number of events at St. Michael's and other churches in the area where they might need coverage on a certain day, and for masses daily, and for on Sunday, and for funerals and weddings. This past weekend, I was called to perform a wedding at the cathedral, and I had never met the couple because the priest that was going to do the wedding, and he called me on Friday right before the rehearsal, he'd come down with COVID, and he was coughing like crazy. So he said, "Would you please go over and if you're free, go over and do that wedding?" And so I was happy to meet the couple and went to the rehearsal dinner. I like rehearsal dinners sometimes more than weddings. They're a lot more fun.
That's for sure. So you have something in common with Bill. You're both from Wisconsin originally.
Yeah.
And I'm going to let Bill kind of roll with the background.
Yeah. Well, you told me Milwaukee.
Milwaukee.
And I was
born in Milwaukee.
And I was born in Green Bay. I got to ask the obvious. Are you a Packer fan? Did you grow up a Packer fan?
No, I didn't grow up there. I left there when I was about 2 years of age. The family decided to come out of the cold North Country and come on down this way. And we lived down in Florida for about 2 years in Orlando, Winter Park. And then we moved up to Charlotte And then up to Greensboro, where I've settled and was raised in Greensboro. And so that was, but I did go back to Wisconsin a lot, because in my early years, back in the latter part of the 30s and the early 40s and all, there was a lot of polio in North Carolina. And polio wasn't as evident up in Wisconsin. So my folks sent me up to be with my grandmother up in Antigo, a little town in the northern part of Wisconsin,
Sure.
gateway to the lakes, they call it.
Yep.
And that's where I spent a lot of my summers as a young kid. Because if you were down here, you couldn't hang around with anybody. You couldn't go to the movies. You couldn't go swimming. You just had to almost stay in your house. It was like COVID in a way when that polio epidemic came. In fact, they built overnight in Greensboro a polio hospital for young kids, and they were in the iron lungs and all that. And it was a tremendous expenditure, and also of time, and the Red Cross and the nurses and doctors working there to help the children in this polio area.
I am curious. I've told you off mic that I too wanted to be a priest.
Really?
I did.
Oh,
and
my
I
goodness.
actually went to the seminary to visit, and that's about as far as it went for me. But you took it all away. And and I'm just curious, when did that happen?
Well, it took a long period of time. See, back in Greensboro, I was raised by going to my education for the first 8 years was a Catholic school. It was in a house, and there were 4 rooms. And there were very few Catholics living in North Carolina at that time. And we had the sisters, and you would have first and second grade in one room, third and fourth in the next, fifth and sixth, seventh and eighth. 4 rooms, 4 groups of kids, about 100 maybe. And you'd have this mix of wonderful being with the sisters during the day and your parents at night. And I was very lucky.
Was there a special time in your life where you felt like you got the calling, or was it just progressive through school and stuff?
Yeah, being in the school with the nuns, and you had there was a funny story about that too, with the nuns and the priest. One time, Bob Hope came to the city, and he was going to perform. And I served Mass early that morning, and the Monsignor, the guy in charge of the parish, Monsignor Dolan, was there, and he said, after the Mass, what are you going to do today, John? I said, well, I'm going to go see Bob Hope. Bob Hope, you got a ticket to see Bob Hope? And I said, yes. My mother gave it to me. He said, gosh, if you had 2, I'd go with you. So then I go over to the school, and I asked the sisters at the school, I said, now I have to get out at 1 o'clock to go see Bob Hope. We don't dismiss kids at 1 o'clock. We never dismiss any kids at 1 o'clock. What are you talking about? I said, well, my mother gave me this ticket to see Bob Hope, and it's a 20-minute walk to the stadium here, and I thought I would go see Bob Hope. And she said, well, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. I said, now I learned from my mother that there was always somebody above, So I said, well, who do I see now? She said, what do you mean, who do you see now? I said, well, she said, the principal. You can see the principal if you want to. So I went to see Sister Eleanor, and she said, and she gave me the same line. And we went on, and she said, you're not going to see Bob Hope. We don't dismiss kids. We dismiss at 3 o'clock. And I said, well, I said, well, who do I see now? And she said, what do you mean, who do you see now? The only person that can get you out of here is Monsignor Dolan. And I said, well, he said this morning he really had it. That would be a great idea. He would go with me if he could, and he was very happy that I was going to see Bob Hope. And she slammed her foot down, and she said, you can go see him if you want.
You were very wise at a young age.
Oh, it really was. You learn these things as you go. Listen to your parents or the way they act. So that was it. But I was impressed with the sisters, and they taught me the Catholic faith, and also there was a period of time there too that my mother was very ill. She had contracted cancer, and she was very, very ill. And the priests were so diligent about visiting her and taking care of her and being responsive. Plus, there was a priest in the parish by the name of Josh Mundell, and everybody in Greensboro knew Josh. He was on the GGO committee, the Greater Greensboro Open, the golf committee, and he was just a really wonderful young priest. And he had a loud bell under his car when he would come by, bang, 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 he'd ring that bell. And I just enjoyed his enthusiasm and everything. Then at a period that was going on, so I was thinking even of going over to a minor seminary back then. That would be you go away for high school. I would go up to Baltimore. My best friend, Bobby George, did do that. And he went up there. I did not. I changed my mind and did not go on up to Baltimore at that time. And finished my high school in Greensboro at the local public high school. For a year, I lived in Lexington, North Carolina. And in Lexington, I went down there, and the kids were just so received me so just really very nice, all the guys there. And I wanted to get me in the Key Club down there and everything like that, which was great. And I really drew close to these guys and gals, and four of those guys were out, I believe it's three, on a given Saturday, and I was not with them. It was during the winter. But I just admired them so greatly, and they were out fishing, I guess, and I had often thought about maybe explaining more about the Catholic faith to them. And they had a terrible incident on a lake down there near Lexington. And the boat they were in, they had all their winter garb on, boots and so forth like that. It capsized, and these three guys drowned.
Oh, no.
And that was just a shock to me and my system. And they gave me the notion of the shortness of life. You know, this life doesn't last forever. There is a wonderful period of time, and you live and have your being and everything like that. But there comes a time when the Lord will greet us once again, and when we die. And so I was just really struck by that. So that was about my junior year of high school. And then towards, at that particular time, my parents really, especially my mother, they did not like the heat of North Carolina down here in this way. So my mother she and I would go up to Blowing Rock in western North Carolina. And the war was going on back then and everything. And she would go, and we would stay at an inn up there, like $50 a week or something like that, where the guy ran the inn from up in Virginia, and he had all this food. So not only was she getting away from the heat, she was also, she could save all of her savings stamps. The stamps you have for beef and sugar and butter and all those different stamps we had, she wouldn't have to spend those because he was bringing the food in from the north. My dad would come up on the weekend. And so they went out looking for property one day, and they found a fellow that was quite wealthy, had a big business, and he had an estate, but he had been in a situation with a divorce, and he wanted to sell all of this. It's 18 acres on a golf course. And so he wanted to sell that with the big manor house and the 6-car garage and everything like that. And he wanted to sell it for this unbelievable price that was just unbelievable. It was just unbelievable. And my dad knew you could get loans and things like that, and so he managed to purchase this, and we turned it into an inn and ran the inn. And a lot of times we had customers that were honeymooners. And that was a great delight, just being with these young couples and being kind to them. And I would be relating to them and telling them what they could do and where they could go and all. And one day, one of these couples, they wanted to go up. I suggested they have a picnic on the Blue Ridge Parkway and watch the sunset and do all that. And they said, would you come with us? And I said, no, I'm not coming with you. And we prepared all the food and gave it to them, and off they go. Well, we kept up with that couple, and they settled in Greensboro, and he was a neurologist. And they settled there, and he was a doctor and a neurologist working at the hospital in Greensboro. And then all of a sudden, my mother and I would visit them. They lived in Greensboro, up north, and they had a lovely home and 3 kids. And as time went by, 2 kids, 3 kids. And my mother and I would go up and visit him. One day he said, "Can I speak to you in the library?" And I said, "Yes." "Well, what is it?" And he said, "Come in the library. I want to talk to you." And went in the library, and he said, "I've got something to tell you." And I said, "What's that?" He said, "I have cancer of the brain." And I started to cry. I said, "What? Oh my God! Oh my goodness!" And he said, and he came over and he started consoling me. He was consoling me, and I was just devastated to think that here's this very successful guy with a beautiful wife and children, and that's his whole field, his brains, and he's got this cancer. And he said, "John, I'll be deceased in about a year, but I know the Lord Jesus, and I am very close to him, and I know what life is all about in heaven. I love my dear wife. I know they will be taken care of, and my children, and I'm thinking and spending more time with them." And he's just consoling the goodness out of me, and I am just devastated by this. And then when I left, my mother in the car, she asked me what had she conversed with me. And I said, "Mother, he's got cancer, and he thinks he will be," when she started to cry. And then so the next thing was that I thought, well, how wonderful it is. And then there was this line in Scripture, how do people know the Lord unless someone gives them the message and spreads it, talks to them about it? That reaffirmed me even more about that particular aspect of maybe I should be thinking more about priesthood, like my friend Bobby was, and so I began to think of that. Then it came time to go to college, and it so happened that I was accepted at Duke University. They had taken the various opportunities to be accepted. There were different programs they had and scholarships and things, and so I was accepted at Duke, and I was almost prepared to go there. And now my friend Bobby, he finished high school, but he didn't go on. He came to North Carolina State and got a degree in engineering here. But I'm summer before going to college, and all of a sudden at the parish, one of the priests said, "Well, maybe you should, if you're thinking of priesthood, maybe you should go to a Catholic college." So at the middle of the summer, I changed from Duke to Georgetown in Washington and started going up there with the Jesuit fathers. And that was an interesting experience.
So I have to ask, I mean, you didn't go to Pope University?
No.
Villanova wasn't in the cards back then?
No, nothing.
All right,
like
that's
that.
where I went. So, you know.
There you go, Villanova. Right. Oh, gosh.
Oh, Leo, yeah.
With Bobby. Were you with Bobby?
No, I wasn't. Everybody asked me that question. I'm like, give me some credit. I'm a little younger than the Pope.
He's so great. Oh, gosh. He is, I have a real good friend at Villanova that he was a basketball player, Ed Hastings, who played back in the 70s. and against UCLA when the Final Four and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And he's up there now teaching. And he called me right after that, and we were talking, and I said, "What'd you think?" And he said, "Well, my goodness," he said, "I was sitting there," and he was in school with him and knew him very well in various works with Villanova and also with the Augustinians and all that. And so he knew him like the back of his hand. And he said, when I was sitting there watching this on TV, and all of a sudden he walks out on the balcony of that St. Peter's. He's the Pope. He said, I just burst into tears. It was unbelievable. I just cried and cried and cried.
I was up there for a reunion in June, and they have T-shirts that say Pope University now. So they're going to play that. I'm sure they're going to find a way to jack the tuition up another $20,000 a year too. So.
He was the greatest. He was
anyhow. So you're at Georgetown, or you just
at Georgetown, and I'm there, and everything like that, and going on, and they were like all along the way with this journey. It was a journey. You have ups and downs in the whole thing, and so. Like you probably, you had that beautiful visit there to the seminary, and then you thought, well, maybe, and then you have a little down in your spirituality and everything. Well, I was really down at Georgetown. I was thinking still about priesthood, but I was just, I had the very thought of. It was just not as nice. The spiritual feelings disappeared, going to Mass and stuff like that. And so I was sitting in the library one day, and I was saying, God, if you don't tell me why you're treating me like this, and if you're really God, I want to know, because if I'm thinking of giving my life to you and blah, 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 and you're treating me like this, and everything is so empty and dry and not feeling like spiritual and everything like that. And I want to know what's going on. And I said, I'm going over to that library shelf. It was the religion section. And I'm going to close my eyes, going to take a book, and I'm going to walk back here, and I'm going to open that book, and I want to know why I'm left in this empty, unhappy moment, why I'm not getting all this sweetness of believing and everything like that. And I want you to give me an answer to that. Go take the book and don't look at it. Bring it over, open it up, and I don't even open my eyes. I still got them closed. And open it up and point my finger to a page. And now I get one emotional when I say that. The book was written in the 1500s or something like that. It was St. Vincent de Paul, and it was an address to some sisters in a convent. And it said, our Heavenly Father is like an earthly father. And when an earthly father comes home from work in the evening and his children run to the door to greet him, he may, every now and then, reach in his pocket and give them some sweets, some candies. But a good earthly father would never give candy every time the children run to him, for fear they're being running to him for the candy and not for himself. I just put my head down.
Wow.
It was a most marvelous moment of my life.
So that was your profound moment?
It was a profound.
Sure sounds like it would be.
It was a very profound moment. Very profound. Very profound. So with the combination of things that were going on in my being, namely with the thought of how short our life is, with those three guys drowning and all that, and then the young physician with his deep love of Jesus and how he got that, and then the knowing this relationship with God, how he's constantly with you, and even though you don't know it, and he's maybe not giving you candy at that particular time, it maybe it's some difficulty or a struggle or something else. And then there was one other instance, and at Georgetown, one night I was in the chapel thinking about all this, and I was a sophomore, and I said, well, now I'm pretty smart and everything. I figured this out. This could all be just a bunch of baloney, you know. And I'm sitting back there thinking, and then all of a sudden, this Jesuit dressed comes in. I couldn't see him. He's way up there in the altar, and I'm sitting way in the back, and I can just see an old figure, and he comes there, and he kneels in front of the altar in front of the Blessed Sacrament, and he prays. I said, well, he's probably one of the brothers here that clean the restrooms and serve the food and work in the kitchen and sweep the floors. And he's not as smart as I am, and he hasn't analyzed all this like I have, and everything like that. And I said, well, that's fascinating. So, but if he can do that, that's good. That's okay for him, but it's not for me, because I'm pretty smart now. I'm a sophomore. You know what a sophomore means? Wise fool. It's the sophomorus, wise fool. But anyway, I was pretty sharp about everything. So anyway, they come back. I knew where the best dances were in town. But anyway, they come back down the aisle. He comes walking down the aisle. And lo and behold, it's the president of the university. And his picture was on the front page of the Washington Post that morning, where he had just been appointed to the Atomic Energy Commission. Shot that theory. And things like that reaffirm my faith and that there is this wonderful God that loves us so greatly, and that some wise, unbelievable people just embrace that concept. And here again, maybe I should be thinking of becoming a priest. So I did apply to the Diocese of Raleigh, and then I was accepted for studies the next year, and I left my roommates and my friends at Georgetown and went up to Baltimore, and that's where I spent my next 2 years, junior year and senior year. And my roommate, Bill Joyce, he became, back at Georgetown, I was studying there in class when there was a fellow that he went on to law school along with my roommate, and his name was, I was in class with him. There were 4 of us and so forth at different classes, and he didn't do real good at law. He got later. He went to the Supreme Court. His name was Scalia, Anthony Scalia. Man. And he was such a fun guy and a really delightful person, and then and so it was just wonderful. And I keep up with my friend Bill. It was after I left, he became Scalia's roommate, and he was his best man for his wedding. I could tell you the story of the wedding and everything like that, but I won't get into that. But anyway, it was just a wonderful. And I keep up with Bill. He calls me right now. He's retired, living up in Maryland. Mm-hmm. So, but that was it. And then I did 2 years in Georgetown, and 2 years in Baltimore at the seminary for the first time, and then received a telegram from the bishop that I wouldn't be continuing at St. Mary's in Baltimore, that seminary, but I would be going to Rome, Italy. And then I went to Rome for the next 4 years, where I was in studies at the American College over there. I enjoyed that. It was really funny. My mother woke up my dad at night. I came home late in the evening with some buddies, and they said, "Were you going to tell your parents you were going to Rome to study?" And I said, "Yeah, I will. I think so." And went, "Well, you better go tell them now." Well, I went in there. Mother was reading a book. Dad was asleep. And And I said to Mother, I'm going to Rome to study. And she said, oh, my gosh, how long? 4 years. Oh, my goodness. Art, wake up, Art. And and he wakes up, what? And she says, John's going to Rome to study for 4 years and to be a priest. And he said, oh, Rome. Well, how far is that from Monte Carlo?
Here's a hot take on some 50 Cups tea.
Our English breakfast tea is known to be great for body and heart health as it contains polyphenol antioxidants which help lower inflammation, and it also promotes heart health and is full of micronutrients like potassium, which helps nerve contractions, magnesium and phosphorus help bone health, and folate, which helps the production of red blood cells.
Visit 50cupstea.com to find out more.
You know what's interesting? You know, I don't.
He's good.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I don't want to make this about me, but so much of what you just said is something I think that's relatable to anybody who's on this journey, right? How do you? Your hindsight's 20/20 now. You can look back and it's almost as though you can connect the dots when the Lord actually spoke to you,
right, in a very wonderful way. Mm-hmm.
And I keep waiting for the big, hey, Bill, that's not going to come. It probably doesn't come to anybody.
Well,
does it?
It does, but you don't know it.
Yeah, right. You don't recognize it.
You
right.
Your ability to broadcast and everything like that, the gifts God has given you, just to be able to do what you do or have done and continue to do. It's incredible. We don't even think about it. We think, and it may be just ups and downs of your life. And the downs are periods when you can, I say the downs are like, everybody has them, they're like colds.
Yes.
You know, you get a cold, you're going to get over it.
Right.
But you're miserable while you got it. And and you know it's not the worstest of things, but it is in a way right now, it is terrible. But that's life, but the God that loves us, cares for us, and supports us, and strengthens us, and inspires us, is constantly with us. He is. It's just there.
And you're sure. I can tell you are certain about that. You have no doubts.
No doubts. No. Well, you can doubt it. You can, because that's another part of it. Because if it was so emphatic all the time, and so it took away your free will, you see, if I put a quarter on this table, everybody in Raleigh will say, what's that? And you say to them, what's that? And they said, that's a quarter sitting there on that table. They're forced to say that.
Yes.
God does not want us forced. He wants us to have this freedom, this ability to love. Love is freedom. Yeah, that's the way you're not forced to love the girlfriend you're going with in high school or the person you marry. You're not forced to do that.
Right.
It's a freedom that God gives us, and that freedom is what's so very important and so beautiful and everything. So you do have your doubts at times.
Oh, I do, and it's I think all of us, especially as we get towards the end of the journey, you get finite life, you begin to really notice that, hopefully, and I do believe, in Jesus and God, but the doubts sometimes can be
difficult.
It can hollow you out sometimes.
Oh, and there's maybe pain and something related to the church or related to anything. Upsets. A number of people lose their friends in life and suffer accidents and so forth, and then wonder if there's a loving God. Why did this happen?
Right.
And that's natural, and that's God understands. He's a big God. He knows he can understand and sympathize with us. You follow me?
I do. I watched a bit of your. Could be a comedian. I don't know if you know this. Rather than a Monsignor, you have comedic timing. I was watching this, and it was about your being 90 years old. But you mentioned something. You said, I'm lucky, I'm blessed, and my Catholicism is what made me who I am. Basically, I'm paraphrasing.
Right. But this is true.
Could you explain that?
This is true. Well, if I didn't have all this,
Yeah.
this understanding, and that's why my heart goes out to so many of the young people today, or people that don't have that right now. It's all just immediate now, and I don't have as big a car as I would like, and oh my whole life is centered on just it's money and success and abilities, and that I've got to be stronger, more intelligent, more better, as some friend of mine used to say, than somebody else. And you don't realize that wait a minute, God loves you as you are and gives you these gifts that he's given you, and they're different than that other person has, but they're very substantial and wonderful. And so they don't have that understanding. Plus, they're looking for something substantial and solid and to build their lives on. And that's the big cry now that we're getting with a lot of people that are young people, especially, that are coming to the church, and it drove. We can't understand it. Why around the world this past year, we had such a big influx of people deciding to join us in our faith journey, and it's bigger. Every parish, every campus, everyone is saying what's going on here, that so many people are looking to the church for substance and some stability and answers that are solid and strengthen and can help them in their lives and so forth like that, where they're not finding it in the little books that they're getting at the stores, or they're not finding it in other things that they've tried and so forth. So it's fascinating. It is.
And excited.
You've lived obviously a very long life, and you talk about when you were younger, those your three friends that perished
Right.
in a boating accident.
Right.
Did you ever think you were going to be live into your 90s? And what are some of the things that keep you going?
Oh, I just, an interesting thing like this. I never thought about doing something like this 3 weeks ago, and just to see you guys and be with you and sort of share my feelings and ideas, and that keeps me going. But and it's also the opportunities that I have, like the wedding this past weekend. That I was just called to do, and oh gosh, what's this all about? And I just loved that couple, and had a rehearsal dinner, just got to know their families and meet them. I have this basic thing of people. I love people and love to be with people, and that came from my father and my mother, and that environment of the hotel or the inn during my formative years of adolescence, and making people rejoice and happier and whatever we're doing. I was thinking of hotel business for a long while. I thought I would go to Cornell and go with the Hilton School up there and become a hotel manager, because that's what a hotel person does. He's constantly working to make the guests happy, better wedding, get the dining room better to serve finer food, all that stuff, and to bring more people, and I just never wanted to sit at a desk and a shirt like that, and because my dad had business week, and he would bring that home, and I'd see all these men sitting in these offices doing stuff with calculators and all that, and I just never appealed to me.
Right.
And then I thought of, this is doing like what I am doing. And so that was a joy. And that continues, because I can still go to the hospital. I can still perform weddings, like your two daughters, our lovely weddings. And I can still bury people and go to their homes when I hear of a death, and console them, and have the funeral mass or the funeral ceremony back at the church, and then go to the reception afterwards and talk to them, and all those different things that I'm mixing with people, and hopefully, bringing a Christ-like presence into that setting. And but it's interesting. Sometimes I get more out of seeing their wonder and their beauty and their love of God, and that I get wrapped up in it because they are so wonderful in themselves, especially the sick people that are struggling with illness, and people that have gone through divorces, and people that your really heart goes out to, and you see how close they are to God, and that's always experience. We had a retreat program in the church called Cursillo, and I was asked once to go on a Cursillo. So I sat at a table with people for guys. It was all guys, and about 8 of them, and I was thinking I was somebody, and I know a lot about the church. I'll learn something here. Well, I learned more from them than I ever. It put me down a notch, but at the same time, it gave me ability to see how God's working in everybody's life, so forth like that. So that's what I still enjoy, being around people and doing that.
And one of the stories from my experience that stands out is my mother-in-law passed, I guess, 7 or 8 years ago now, and she just happened to be living in the area. She was living down in the Wilmington area for a while. And St. Michael's, where my wife and I go, assigned a priest to do the funeral, and just so happened to be you, because all the resident priests, I guess, were busy. And so we reconnected, and I don't think it was because of me and our past relationship, but it was just Monsignor Wall saying, when can I come over? When can I sit with your wife? When can I sit with your sister-in-law? So I need to learn more about your mother-in-law.
Right.
And so you come over, you had a little yellow pad, you sit in our porch area, and you ask a bunch of questions for like an hour and a half. And then we go do the funeral, and it's like Monsignor knew her since the moment she was born. And that's special. You don't get that in a lot of priests. Yeah. You really don't. Yeah. And, one of my more frustrating stories was back in the day of St. Mike's. We were in a beer warehouse, literally in the 1990s. And we have a new pastor, and it's Monsignor Wall. And he's talking about, we're going to build this big, beautiful church, because the old St. Michael's was on another side of town. And being a young family with 2 little kids at the time, you went into this dark dungeon of a church, and with a bunch of older people, and it wasn't really welcoming to families. And then we go to this beer warehouse, and there's kids blasting everywhere, and there's young families and everything else. And it was a beautiful community. And then we have Father Inspiration over here telling us we're going to build this palace, this beautiful church on High House Road at some point in time. So we ended up doing it. And then we started the school. And then, of course, I wanted ball fields and gyms for the kids to play, my kids especially, to play basketball and everything. And every year we go to Monsignor and say, can we do it? Not yet. Because he's got to deal with 5,000 families, right?
Sure. Right.
It's not just about me. And but thankfully we were able to get it done over the long haul. And that's probably one of the best parishes.
Wonderful job.
Because of you, getting that whole parish going at that point.
We bought the property. That's a big thing too, to get the property next door, which was our lovely friends, the Baptists, owned that. And then we were able to purchase that, so we'd have extra land to do all these other things, which was good. Yeah,
he had the vision I think none of us really had at that time.
Yeah.
But to come over and to interview and to learn about somebody that you didn't know that you were going to do a funeral for was
that's
very
amazing.
impressive.
That's
right.
amazing.
Well, it's and everybody's so important. That was one of the things that Pope John the 23rd. That's a long story, but I got to meet him before he was Pope. One time, he was just a cardinal in Rome, and he was there, and we went up, and this priest, Father Byron, he said, "Well, John, he could be the next Pope," and I said, "No, he's not going to be the next Pope." And he said, And I said, why? He's too heavy, I said. He said, well, John, that's ridiculous. So we went up and I were talking, and I introduced everybody to him. And he said, where are you from? And I said, we're from Carolina del Nord, in the United Stati Uniti. And he said, he said, mi pensa, I think that there are many Protestants there. And he said, yes. And I said, how many? I said, 99%. And he said, oh, mamma mia. And then he started bragging about his hometown, Bergamo. And then we were talking. He said, well, who are these people you have with us? And I said, well, we have here, this is my pastor from Greensboro, Monsignor Freeman. And we have my seminarian friend, Bob. And we have this other priest, Father Byron from Charlotte. And he said, Monsignor Freeman. I said, but he's Vicar General, which is a big deal in the church. You're assistant to the bishop and everything. And back then, in 1960, if the bishop is sick or dies, you become the bishop, acting bishop, but he's not really bishop, but you fulfill the role of a bishop till the Vatican appoints a new one.
Oh, okay.
So he says, oh, Monsignor Freeman, give me your hand. Oh, Monsignor Freeman, tutta la mattina le domanda vescovo, come va? Every morning you look at the bishop, you say, Bishop, good morning. How are you feeling?
Told you he could be a comedian.
This is the
funny.
Pope. This is
the Pope,
no.
the soon-to-be Pope.
4 days later, he's the Pope.
Oh, that is
And he's
funny.
rubbing his little belly, laughing his head off, and I am screaming and yelling, laughing. We're all screaming and laughing. It was so funny. Well, he's the same one that the next day, or after he became Pope, had a press conference, and some guy stood up and said, Your Holiness, how many people work here at the Vatican? Oh, mi pensa. I think half of them.
That is
he was so funny. He was so funny.
You have a favorite Pope?
Oh, I do. He Pope
sounds
John the 23rd and Francis and John Paul II, and all these recent ones have been just marvelous in every way. And I think Leo the 14th is going to be just magnificent.
How many of you met?
I met personally Pius, in the sense of being with him a lot. I was with Pius XII maybe 40 or 50 times in different ceremonies and different things like that. To speak with him and everything was John the 23rd. And he, in fact, we had another meeting one time after he was Pope, and we were standing there at Castel Gandolfo in a summer place where this one just went for the summer and for a vacation. But it's a place out near, it's up in the hills overlooking Rome. It's cooler at night. And there he was, and it was three of us in the room, he said to the bishop was there, and he said to the bishop, he said, where are you going from here? And he said, we're going to the Holy Land, Terra Santa. And he said, oh, my first airplane ride was to the Holy Land, Selenia, and he's trying to think of the airline. Well, I didn't read the book, Don't Interrupt the Pope While He's Thinking.
Yes.
And I just couldn't take it any longer. I'm standing alongside of him. And finally, he says, Selenia. And finally I said, Selenia, Air France, sui santo, Air France, Your Holiness. And he said, Si, veramente. And he stepped back and he whammed me on the back, and I go flying forward. And he says, bravo, Ricardo, good boy, Air France. And the bishop is looking, why is he slapping John on the back?
That's funny.
It was so funny. He was great. He was great. He was.
You're 90 years old. You don't seem like you're 90 years old, but if you look past over your life, see, I think you're in such a unique position because it's not only your life, but you've touched the lives untold thousands with being a priest.
Right.
Well, when you look back and where we are today, can you make sense of it? I mean, how are we doing? What are we overcoming our problems?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that's a fascinating question. Yeah. Do we have more problems or do we have less problems? That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see in so many ways a progress, real progress. I think back in my own day how opinionated I was about everything, and people are no good and blah, 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 and he's blah, blah, blah. And as a little teenager in high school and putting down people and making fun of them and everything. And so, but I don't see that going on among the high school and college crowd today. I don't see that where they can just negate a whole group of people or something. They don't seem to like to do that. And I think that's very positive. A sense of charity, a sense of kindness, a sense of love, and a sense of acceptance, So I see that. I also see where, in my own mind, I'm less, hopefully, maybe more humble than I was before, thinking I knew it all or something like that. As you go through life, you realize that, that Pope John the 23rd told us, there were three things he told us after we were ordained, and I can't remember the first two, but the third one was, there is never a person in this world that you meet that you can't learn something from.
Oh.
Wow. And that was, so I think that I've learned to be, maybe keep my mouth shut and listen to people more, or look at them or walk in their shoes or different thing like that. And I think that's been helpful to me. And I see that quality among people. So I see with the changes that we've had in the church, oh my goodness, ecumenism, this relationship, when the Vatican Council happened and we became more open and friendly with other denominations, and they the same way with us. It was wonderful. It was wonderful, still is. And I see that as definite progress. And so there are so many aspects of clerical and priestly life and all that I see as having progressed and having become better as time in my 90 years of looking around, seeing stuff and stuff like that, especially in the whole civil rights area. I just spent a week traveling through the South to Montgomery and to Selma and to Memphis, and just looking at all the museums and seeing the great progress that our African American people have made, and we have too, and so much more to go through. But that was a plus, and I see that all happened during my lifetime. So I remember all that. I was at Camp Lejeune when John Kennedy was shot, driving down the Camp Lejeune, the Marine base here.
Yeah.
And driving down the highway, and I said, oh my goodness, and I pulled into the radio station where I had a little weekly program, and the guy saw me coming in, and I said, where's the teletype? Where's the teletype? And he said, the teletype? He said, Studio A. And I said, teletype machine. He said, Studio A. And I went in Studio A, and I'm looking around, and then I see, all of a sudden, I see on air. And he said, and now Father Wall will lead us in prayer. Oh, my God. I almost died. This was the local station for the Marine base. And they weren't pulling in other stations back then. And so I said a prayer and everything else like that. Thank you now, Father. We would now rejoin the network. And then I went to the teletype machine and saw that the president had died. Then that night we had a big ceremony there with all the Marine generals and everything. We had the largest space in town for that type of activity.
Sure.
So, and then I got up with the rabbi and the different Protestant ministers, and the pastor was out of town, actually, and had a big ceremony that evening. So that was very moving. All these different things.
Sure.
Ups and downs through knowing how the country can bounce back, comes alive again, and goes on, and that's seeing that in society has been interesting.
I never got over the folk mass.
You never been to a folk mass?
No, I have. No, I even played in it, but I remember as an altar boy, I practiced Latin.
Oh, my heaven.
And
Damn Calitificat Juventutem.
well, I don't remember Latin now, yeah. but I did, and then it was like
you were playing guitar.
Well,
for the folk masses.
It was the traditional Catholic.
Yeah,
it was the feeling you walked in. There was something, I don't know. It was just an ominous presence with the Latin, and then we went to
Oh yeah, folk mass.
For the folk mass. I was never a big fan.
Yeah, well, I had a parish board chairman and Kinston, and he was very much upset about all this modern music
I can imagine.
and the folk mass and with the guitars and all that in the sanctuary. It drove him out of his mind, and so he came up to me and he said, "John, I know, Father," he said, "I was just at Myrtle Beach last weekend." And I said, "Oh, you were? What? How was that?" And he said, "It was the most marvelous thing I've ever seen in my life." He said, "The music was so great and so wonderful, and the guitars and everything. They were so good they drowned out the darn drums."
Well, it certainly kept me in the church a much longer period playing in the folk mass. So you wonder if that was God's way.
My aunt and uncle went one day, and they thought it was for the old folks.
Ah.
When they went to the folk mass, and they realized it was for the young folks.
That's funny. I mean, obviously, at that point, I mean, there has been a lot more music incorporated in the mass,
right?
In the last 30 or 40 years.
Yeah, sure.
That's right. Yeah, that's been true. Yeah.
So you've been a phenomenal guest.
Yes.
We appreciate your time today.
I've enjoyed it so much.
And I'm sure
Thank you.
Sure.
You didn't hit me with those hard questions and everything like that. I thought this was wonderful.
To close, we always ask our guests to impart 5 things of wisdom, to our audience. Obviously, you talked recently about you can always learn from somebody.
That's right.
I assume that's one of yours.
Right. Yeah, one of mine. Yeah, one of mine is I think the Good Samaritan parable about loving God. That's what we should do. We should really love our God because He loves us so greatly. He's created us, and for the Christian, we believe His Son Jesus redeemed us, and so we should love our God and our neighbor, people that are surrounding us, and every way like that. I think also that we should. My dad always gave me a thing: if you're in a position of leadership or something like that, the secret to administration is delegation. And my dad gave me that. He said also that the shortest pencil is better than the longest memory. But those are the 2 things he taught me, and so that passing that on, that secret of administration, working with people, is delegation, seeing their talents and allowing that to flow and surface. And I know there's so many other things that we could think about. Just the whole idea of difficulties. Yeah, we all have them, and we all have struggles. But they're like colds, and just because you got a cold doesn't mean you're an awful terrible person, or you're don't get down on yourself. Don't get down on yourself. If God forgives us so easily, we should certainly forgive ourselves for our imperfections. and all the little difficulties that we have in our lives and struggles, and then that sense of kindness to others and working with them and always trying to advance them. And I think also you should get a lot of sleep. And if you can't get to sleep, you should try to learn to do what I did in Italy, have siestas. Because it makes every day 2 days.
There you go. Great stuff.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I've enjoyed being with you, and thank you. God bless you.
Thank you.
too.
Lord bless and keep you.
Thanks for joining us on Hot Takes 50 Cups. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to visit our website at 50cupstea.com for more great content and delicious organic teas, and listen and watch us on all the leading platforms. Stay connected with us on Instagram at 50cupstea, YouTube, and TikTok. And don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with your friends. Until next time, keep sipping and stay united.